It's worth it to mention that today's a special day. Today's Hey Tevet, the 5th of Tevet. And what happened on Hey Tevet is that the court in the United States, every Yom Pagra.
About the books?
About the books, yeah. Every special day, holiday in Chabad or in Hasidus in general, has something to do with the court, with prison, jail. There was once a person that he hung around with the Chabad Hasidim, and he was new to the whole thing, and he came home, and his mother told him, "No, where were you?" We were celebrating with a whole Fabregin in honor of what? In honor of the Alter Rebbe leaving prison. And he comes back the next Yom Pagra, and again, where were you? We were Fabregining. This Admor came out of prison. So she says, you got to check who you're hanging out with. This is, but we know that everything that happens here is a reflection of what happens here. And we spoke a drop about that in Hilchos Tzaras. We have, sorry? Oh yeah, Netzach Israel? Can you show me?
I'll show you.
Send it, interesting to see. So, if you have a court case in this world, that's a certain sign. What is the sign? How to resolve it? What to change? What to do? That's a different shayla, but a sign it is. We started to learn the laws of tzaras. The laws of tzaras in the Rambam are very interesting to learn about. But what was tzaras? It was a sign. Today there's no such a thing as tzaras. Why is there no such a thing as tzaras? Where did that disappear? We're not on a level that we can get direct signs from Hashem anymore. And by the way, then, the person had that sign. He used to isolate himself from the rest and think about where he's holding in life. And once he resolved that, the impurity also went away. So today we're not on the high level that we could actually receive such a sign from Hashem. And for that reason, we get signs in other ways. But yes, if someone's put in prison here in Olam Hazeh, it's because of some kitrug that happens up Lamaila. That's how it works. And if the Bet Mishpat, if the court decides to dismiss this charge, it's a sign that also above, the charges have been dismissed. So it's a reason to celebrate. That is Hey Teves. That's in general about every Yom Pagra, but specifically Hey Teves is the decision of the federal court that the books of the archive of the previous Rebbe are not personal belongings and therefore are transformed to the next generation after his passing, but they belong to the Hasidim. They belong to the Agudas Hasidei Chabad, which is every Hasid Chabad basically, it's their possession, and therefore it does not go on to the children. It's a whole thing, a whole Indian in Chabad, that the Rebbe is something public. The Rebbe belongs to every one of us, and therefore the books also belong to every one of us, and therefore it's an everlasting Hasidus, and it's not based on whether one person's alive or not alive anymore, etc., etc. So it's a day of celebration, and it's a day of segula as well. When the judge, when the court, and again, why does it work that way? Is when the court makes a decision in the favor of the Hasidim, in favor of Am Yisrael, this day is a Yom Segula. It has a merit that this day has some kind of power that we also can gain from. So it's a day for Yom Segula, Yom Bakasha. We can ask from Hashem for Hatzlacha, each and every one in what he needs.
Rabbi, was there some particular learning in the books that is of great significance to us?
So this is an interesting point. It was not about the content of the books really, but it was about the value of the books or the books themselves. A lot of these books were very, very rare, And by the way, a lot of them were actually sold, because the way that it all started was that someone just started stealing books from the archive and selling them. And by the way, the Siddur of the Baal Shem Tov himself is in that archive. And that's how they discovered it. But there are, so first of all, it's the money of the books. But it's not only the money of the books, it's also, by the way, the Rebbe said that, and until this very day, there are sales that are done on the day of Hey Teves, sales of books, book sales. Because the Rebbe said that what we should do, we should learn from this, is that you've got to learn the books. You've got to learn, you've got to study, you've got to buy. So the Hasidim are noheg to buy an additional book to their Eitzos Farim, to their book collection. And that's a practical side of it. Sorry?
They're at 770 now.
Right.
And it's open to the public.
There is an open gallery of part of the books. You can see the Gemaras that were printed, the first edition of printed Gemaras. You can see the Kippah, the yarmulke of the Tzemach Tzedek himself, and a few other interesting. Bezrat Hashem, we have a dream to fly to the Rebbe to New York, to be in 770, but to go to the Rebbe's oil, hear from the, you should do it, it's about time. And Bezrat Hashem, when we will fly, so we'll be able to go and see the archive, again, what we are allowed to see. But yes, definitely it's there. It's one of the biggest archives that are not government archives, especially of Jewish books. Every person that wrote to the Rebbe that he published a book, or he wrote a book, printed a book, the Rebbe always told him, please send one copy to the Mazkiros, to the secretary, so we can have it also. What else? Yeah.
So was this Gerari excommunicated?
Correct.
Was he?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately.
From what?
From the possessioning the land.
Communicated from the Jewish people.
No, not to that level at all. What else? Oh, the lawyer that dealt with this case, his name was Nate Lewin. And he actually stayed here quite a few times, visited here. He visited the Bet Chabad. We were not able to get him for a lecture, but yeah, the person's still around.
He was involved in another famous case.
1987.
Wasn't there another case, famous case that he was involved with?
Not that I know of, not something that has to do with Chabad activities. I think he was a very good lawyer in general. He was a successful lawyer.
His daughter was.
Could very much be, yeah. Okay, so that's a bit about Hey Tevis. And another additional part is that the Rebbe also, previous Rebbe, left a lot of his archive in Russia. So I think this was 1928 when the Rebbe was sent out of Russia, or 1927, okay, perhaps 1928. The Rebbe was sent out of Russia. They basically told him, you can leave Russia, but you're not allowed to return. So he was able to take out a nice amount of the archive, but not the entire archive. And the rest of the archive was confiscated by the Russians, by the Soviets. And today, by the way, there were quite a few court cases held against the Russians in US courts to bring that archive back. Unfortunately, it was not successful. And the Rebbe was mamish, the Rebbe wanted the archive to return. There was one step of improvement, is that Putin basically took all the archive and gave it to the Jewish Museum in Russia, in Moscow. And so if you go to the Jewish Museum, it's a very interesting museum. It's a very nice museum. There's nothing there that they try, and change and play with. It's not like the Polish government doing a museum on Jews. I don't think it's that style of a museum. I was there, and you see the Jewish life in Russia. And then there's another whole section, a department you can go, you can get a special card. You've got to issue it. You get your card, and you can ask for books. I didn't know what to ask for, so I just asked for this Gemara, that Gemara, and you get pretty ancient Gemaras, very big and old, old style Gemaras. What else? So that's there. That's the rest of the archive.
You can take them out of the building.
No, so you're not allowed to take them. That's why you've got to issue a card. They take a picture. You sit there. There's like a room. You can sit and you can learn the Sfarim, but we're not able to take them out yet.
Same with the Vatican.
The same with the Vatican. It's very interesting. What is in the Vatican?
That's it.
That's it. Bemet. That's what the Gemara says.
Yes, the Gemara said.
Still is there. That's the whole thing. Have you heard of Rabbi Avraham Bloch? It was one of the rabbis that
went in and took tear one page.
So I didn't hear about him tearing one page. We had a lecture not long ago from Harry Moskov. He's an archaeologist. He's a film producer, and he has a new book. It was very promising. The Jewish treasures, the treasures underneath the Vatican. But he did not come up with any results besides Jewish writings, Farim, and things like that. They have a lot of those. They have like 6,000 or an enormous amount. But that's okay. We're not looking for that. It's like, is there more? He claims that there's nothing more. So he claims, for example, if they did bring the menorah, by now it's already been melted and sold or used, because the Vatican needed a lot of money for their wars and for all of what they needed. Lo batuach. The Vatican is the richest institute in the world. Now,
pay off all these lawyers and selling property in the U.S.
They're selling property, okay. But if you can sell property in the U.S.
Here in Jerusalem.
Yeah, have here in Jerusalem, yeah. Emek HaMatzleva, half of Rechavia used to be. They sold it. I think now some wealthy person owns it.
I don't think they sold it already.
Or not the whole thing.
The sale is going to be valid. I don't know in how many years from now.
Right. If you own property here in Jerusalem, you've got to make sure that it's not really property that belongs to the church. Again, because half of Rechavia, even the windmill, and if I'm not mistaken, the great synagogue, Heichal Shlomo, a lot of the hotels, a lot of these areas are officially church properties that they do what's called hefker. They like rent the property out. By the way, also, if you own any apartment in Israel, the land is muhkar for 99 years to you, but it really belongs to the government. Now, again, the government always gets to a certain agreement with them that they will continue renting the land to the people that own the properties, but there's always a risk that if chas v'shalom something happens, so then you're not really 100% owner of the land, the property itself. So that's a bit about, so how do we get into all of this? Yes, books, archives, it's a very, very interesting topic. Even going to the Sifriya HaLeumit here. Has anyone been in the National Library? Very close, right? Right. Oh yeah, you spent some time there? Yeah. So,
Where is it?
sorry, they have tours. It's on, if I'm not mistaken, it's on Rupin. It's on Rupin. Right across the Knesset.
Oh.
Unfortunately, the people of the Knesset don't spend enough time in the Sifriya HaLeumit, but it's very interesting to see. Every time I go up north to my in-laws, so that's a moshav. And the moshavnikim are moshavnikim, very leftist, but they come to shul. It's beautiful to see. And they always try and convince me to go to the Sifriya HaLeumit. They want me to expand my my views. So I told them I'm just Chabad.
Green Haaretz.
Yeah, נכון.
I was
Okay.
told by
מנדי, אני בשיעור, אני מיד חוזר אליך.
friends who I worked
חצי שעה.
on the library, that the reason the root dips like this was the Knesset didn't want to lose their view.
Interesting.
The Knesset didn't want to lose their view.
So that's why the roof is like that. יפה. Okay.
Take the floor.
And you have to take the floor.
So yes,
I can do it if you're interested.
okay. So there's a lot of books there also to learn and to study to see the original copies. Again, I don't. Sorry? There's a shul too. Okay. يפה. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of the people that go there and read and stuff. Sorry?
Really secular?
That's a good question.
No,
Mostly.
you can find anything you want. You can, on the second floor. First floor might be more history, literature. The one floor, what's his name? Gershom Shlokim.
Sorry?
The guy who's the writer of Kabbalah. I mean, he didn't write Kabbalah, but he's the great teacher of Kabbalah. Gershom Shlokim.
The Ashlag.
Gershon Scholler.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it.
Wow. It's a beautiful room to study.
Okay. Okay. See, that's why they want me to go to the Sifriya Leumit. Okay. We are in the middle of the topic of Tzimtzum. Okay.
Chapter 7 still?
Chapter 7. We're about to finish chapter 7.
Aishai. Nee, maar soms aan.
Okay.
Well, Israel.
So we spoke about the Tzimtzum. We spoke about specifically 4 different opinions regarding the Tzimtzum. And I want to narrow it down to the 2 extreme opinions. The opinion of the Gra and the opinion of the Alter Rebbe, the opinion of Hasidus. The Gra says simply, and by the way, it's not only the Gra, right after the Arizal wrote about the concept of Tzimtzum Orei HaGadol, Silek Orei HaGadol, Tzimtzum Orei HaGadol v'Silek al Hatzad, there were a few opinions interpreting this meaning, and the Gra's opinion is that Hashem completely removed the luminary itself from the space of which he used later to create the world. And why? For a simple reason. If the luminary exists there, then you cannot create a world. The world will be nullified, or other reasons, by the way, also, let's say even if the world would not be nullified. The luminary does not cause the nullification of the world, but nevertheless, there are other things that, for example, how could you say that Hashem exists in a bathroom? The luminary is in a bathroom, chas v'shalom, to say such a thing. Or this could lead to idolatry, where people bow down to rocks or to trees, and they say that this is our God. Why? Because this is the luminary itself. The luminary is here.
So what's the luminary?
The luminary means Hashem himself. There's Hashem and there's Hashem's light. There's Hashem and the energy that he provides us with. Right? Like any object in the world. There's the essence and there's the effect, the influence. And each object has its a different way that it affects. But even still objects, they have an effect on the surroundings. Right? So they once examined, not examined, but that's, I think, a clear observation, that the reason that trees in the forest grow straight, trees here, if you ever notice the new trees, Rechavia is full with old trees, 70 years old, 100 years old. But in new neighborhoods, they have, basically they built a support around the tree to make sure that the tree grows straight. Otherwise, the tree is going to grow like that. And why is it? It's because that in the forest, they have some kind of relationship between them that causes them to straighten themselves. So, yes, everything has its essence, it's the core of its being, and the influence, the influence on its surroundings. Okay? What is the word? There's a word, the chain of, that each species helps the other species in another way.
Symbiosis.
Again, sorry?
Symbiosis.
Symbiosis? Okay. The idea, the concept is true, that there's called sharsheret, in Hebrew it's called sharsheret hamazon. So the bees help the flowers, and the flower, okay, this chain.
They complement each other.
They complement each other, thank you very much. So that's like, there's the core, and this is again, it's a mashal, it's a parable. So there's the essence of Hashem, which is the luminary itself, and there's the rays of Hashem, like the rays of the sun. So the sun has a nature of spreading light. And then there's the quality of the sun itself. If a person would say the sun, what is the sun? The sun is rays of light. It's wrong. The sun is the sun. It has the quality of spreading light around it. But the core, the essence of the sun is something completely different. We do not know what it is because we were not able to reach it. But everything has its Shem HaEtzem and Shem HaToar, based on its behavior, the way it acts, the way it reacts, the way it influences others. And this reminds me about what it says about Yishmael, very relevant to our days. And it says about Yishmael, V'hu yeh pere Adam. He will be a wild man. Sorry?
Yeah.
He will be a pere Adam, a wild man. Now, in Hebrew, you first say Shem HaEtzem, and then you say Shem HaToar, which means first you speak about the object, then you speak about the description of the object. So you should say about Yishmael, Hu yeh Adam Pir'i. He'll be a human wild. In English, it's the opposite, by the way, but in Hebrew, first you speak about the being, and then you speak about the way he reacts. And here we can see, in our days, how his Shem HaEtzem is pere. At his core, he's wild. He's a wilde chaya. And he's got a toar. The description is Adam. But we can see it now with what's happening in Syria, not even in connection to what's happening here. Mamish, hu yeh pere Adam.
So it seems that Esau was the wild ass of the man. What did Ishmael do?
It's just the nature of his creation.
What did he do?
So again, there's Yishmael is conventional in a certain way. Esau is conventional. Okay, he was a hunter, as they say. He was a hunter-gatherer. So,
but it seems he was deceiving people.
yes, he was. He's like any other person outside that you. Again, wild as a description of his behavior as a human. But he was a human. About Yishmael, it says that he was a pere Adam. He was wild. His nature was wild, and you can see it. And he acted like a human. But you can see today. You can see the children, the descendants, and by seeing what the descendants, you can also tell about the parents. That's
what's going on in England. It's unbelievable. Rapes all over the place.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Or persecuted.
Right. So yeah, again, you can see this whole, you see it with the children. Okay, so the Gra's opinion is very clear. He says that Tzimtzum, contraction, is kipshuta, literally. Hashem removed himself. Why? Because if Hashem is here, how could these bad things happen? And we spoke about another question, how could the Holocaust happen? Was Hashem in Auschwitz?
Yes.
So according to Tzimtzum Kipshuto, perhaps we can say no. Perhaps we could say that that's a place where Hashem contracted himself, removed himself from, and therefore he decided, again, it's by his decision, we're not limiting him, but he decided to remove himself from evil places, from bad places, from impure places, from unholy places, and that's how he allows these things to continue. But we know, and we actually read it in the daily Tanya not long ago, that in every single object in the world, there is a nitzotz kedusha. There's a spark of holiness. And that is where this object gets its life from. And this is the Torah of the Admor HaZaken. The Alter Rebbe says the luminary was never concealed at all. The luminary was never removed at all. The luminary still exists here in the world. It doesn't have an immediate effect on us because we were able to build fences against it. And the light, the rays of the sun, that was, Hashem did contract it, but did not completely remove it, which means he placed curtains. And every world has more and more curtains. So the world of Atzilus has a few curtains, not many at all. The world of Bria has quite a few more. The world of Yetzirah has even more. Asiyah more, and so on and so on. And that is the idea of Tzimtzum. And therefore, is Hashem in unholy places? Yes, Hashem is in unholy places, but he's covered. In unhappy situations in life, is he there as well? Yes, he's there, but he's covered. So is Hashem in Auschwitz? Yes, he was there, but he covered himself. He hid himself very, very well. And that's how he allows bad and evil to exist in the world. That's how it works. Yeah.
Auschwitz did come to that.
Right, because Hashem reveals himself again. And again, he makes changes in the way the world runs. And where do we see that the luminary exists? We see the luminary is here with little children, with little kids. For them, it is very, very clear that Hashem exists. If you go into, you see the way they daven. It's not like, they need to be taught a lot or they need to be convinced. It comes from a very pure point, and that is the proof that the luminary exists. Okay. I would like to now address another important topic that is very much connected to Tzimtzum, and this is the difference between neshamas and the rest of the objects around us. So just to clarify it, what is a tree? Or a table? Any other thing that Hashem created in the world, what is it? Can we describe it as holy? Is it Hashem? Is it the light of Hashem? If we say Tzimtzum lo kipshuto, contraction is not something literal, it means that Hashem is all over. But what does it mean that he's all over? There are places that Hashem does not allow you to daven in. Okay, if you're walking by in an unclean place, an unclean alley, or a road, you're not allowed to walk with your tefillin around. It doesn't mean that Hashem's not there. It means that Hashem is concealed. Hashem is hiding there. But it doesn't mean that he's not there at all. Okay, let's go to the next level. What about a shul? Shechina shruya. Or 10 people learning together. There's Shechina over there. What does that mean that there's Shechina? Or the Holy Temple. Or the Kaisel today. Kivrei Tzadikim. The influence of a tzaddik over the space where he was. We spoke about that as well. Vayetze Yaakov mi Be'ersheva, vayelech Haran. Or not only that, we learned in the Parsha that since Yaakov Avinu left Eretz Yisrael and came to Egypt, the famine stopped. Why did the famine stop? Well, the Nile River, with the blessing of Yaakov Avinu, the Nile River used to rise towards Paro himself. Where does that come from? That simply is where Hashem reveals himself more. And at that point, he is able also to override the laws of nature. Usually part of Tzimtzum was that Hashem wanted to let the world run based on rules that he gave. Like the law of physics and all the other laws that we know that that's basically how objects run in the world. But there are cases where Hashem reveals himself on a higher level, and then that's where miracles can happen. So, when we speak about the claim that the Misnagdim had against the Hasidim, the claim was that they are worshipping idols. That's not an easy claim to deal with. Because if you say Tzimtzum like Pshutai, so what is in the table? You're saying that there's the luminary itself is here, gives life to the table, and not only the luminary, it's also the light of Hashem gives life to the objects around us, although it's a small amount of light. So why can't I bow down to a tree and say I'm bowing down to Hashem? But it's not Hashem. Yes, but it's the light of Hashem that's inside. Now I'm asking this question because I want to bring the answer. I want to get stuck at the question.
I can't.
Sorry?
I can't.
It's a good question. On the other hand, we have Cheftei Kedusha. Okay? What do we do with the leftovers of the oil and the psilos from Hanukkah? We burn them. We're not allowed to use them. By the way, someone asked me, are we allowed to use them to light Shabbos candles? It's also not. There's some opinions that say that you are allowed to, but we are machmir like the Beis Yosef, and we do not use it even for Shabbos candles, even for another mitzvah. Why? Because this was Kadosh. We had in our minds that this is going to be used for the mitzvah of Hanukkah specifically.
So that the Malach has only one job.
Right, nachon. So what is the geder of mitzvahs? Tefillin, right? Tefillin is something holy. And let's finally speak about us as well.
Why tzitzis are not that holy?
It's a good question. It's more because tzitzis is a regular beged that you are supposed to add to it ptilot. There are two types of a mitzvah. The mitzvah of tefillin is not it's not about if someone happens to have tefillin, then wear it. No. You have a mitzvah to wear tefillin. Tzitzis is if you have a beged of arba kanfos, 4 corners, add to a tzitzis. But if you don't have al pi pshuto, if you don't have a clothing that has 4 corners, you're not obligated to wear tzitzis. The fact today that we wear it is because we want to do as many mitzvahs as possible. We want to walk around all the time with a mitzvah around us. But it's a good question, but that's not the geder. That's why you couldn't, not as holy. So these mitzvahs are different levels of revelation of Hashem within the mitzvah itself. A lulav and esrog, you're not allowed to use the lulav and esrog during Chag HaSukkos for anything else. If you want to smell the lulav, the esrog, during the Chag itself, you're not supposed to smell the esrog.
What you saying?
During the Chag itself, it's muktzeh le'inyan ha-mitzvah. After the Chag,
I always, before I choose it,
before you can choose, then afterwards also.
It's not allowed.
So maybe
Is
there's
it minhag or is it?
So that's it. I can check more, like, is it a minhag or what? Or especially not if you're using it now for a different mitzvah. If you make a bracha boire mina b'samim on it. So what are you saying? You're saying that the mitzvah of esrog that I'm using it, that's I'm done with. Now I want to use it for boire mina b'samim. It's not respect towards the Lulav and esrog. But I'll look more into it to see what Geder Biduk is it, and if all the opinions go back. Definitely afterwards we all use it for that. But if I'm not mistaken,
Hatat, you mean?
no, I don't think it's.
To me, it's much more part. Also to you.
That doesn't mean it's right.
Oh, so okay, so okay, it's a complicated topic.
You look Shulchan Aruch Harav.
No, not the Shulchan Aruch Harav.
Oh, okay.
There's hadas, because it's only use. The only use of the hadas is for smell, so you're not allowed to smell the hadas at all.
Okay. I never
The
did.
esrog, sorry,
I never did.
you never did. Okay, the esrog, because it has two options. You can eat it, make jam out of it, and eat the jam, and smell it. So eating, you're not allowed for sure. Smelling, there are opinions that say that you're allowed. There are opinions that say not. And that's what I think there's, if you can do your minhag.
On the side.
On the chag itself, yes. Yeah.
I think we're okay.
Okay. But definitely not to say a bracha.
Okay.
So without saying a bracha. The bracha is already declaring that it's another mitzvah. So, so these are different levels of the revelation of Hashem, of His light in the world. And that's why when you go to a holy place, yes, there's a significance to that place, because there's more godliness in that place. Mm-hmm. And in every place, the ma'or is behitgal. The luminary itself exists. So what happened to the tree, and what happens to the stone, to the rock? So that's very important to make a distinction between the object and the living force within it. All what Hasidus says is that there's a living force from Hashem in that object. But the object itself is a table. This is a table. This is not God. How is it able to come to life? That is because of the godly spark within it. But we're not saying that this is God. Chas v'shalom to say such a thing. There is one thing that is slightly different, and that is like the neshama that we have inside us. The neshama, that's a positive. There are things that work in a negative way, and there are things that work in a positive way. The connection between the table and any other physical object and Hashem is based on a negative way, which means that without Hashem, it would not exist. It's a negative relationship. I need you because without you, I don't exist. There's nothing positive over there. But with us, so with our bodies, yes, that's the relationship. Without Hashem, our bodies would not exist. But with our soul, it's not without Hashem, our soul would not exist. Our soul is part of Hashem. Take, for example, the Torah. The Torah is another good example. The Torah is not only without Hashem, the Torah is not going to exist. The Torah is the Chachma, the will, and the wisdom of Hashem Himself. That is called a positive relationship. A negative relationship is without A, B does not exist. A positive relationship is that A is B, A leads to B, A is connected to B, and that is the connection to the mitzvahs. Trying to look for an example of of mitzvahs where there is not, where at a certain time, take for example, schach, right? So schach, also during the Chag, you're not allowed to use schach. But after the Chag, what happens to the schach? That's it. There's no kedusha. There's no holiness. That's why you'll find a lot of people, they just dump the schach on the sidewalk, and some vehicle of the area comes by, collects all that schach and throws it away. You can do whatever you want with it. Why? Because that's after the mitzvah. After the mitzvah, again, the relationship changes from being a positive relationship where Hashem is much more revealed to a negative relationship, which means that without Hashem, it would not exist. But is this an extension of Hashem? Not at all. It's dependent. There's a difference between something that's dependent or something that's like, by the way, they bring an example of, to show how the world is nullified, a puppet show.
What?
So a puppet show. So you have puppets and they do all the movement, everything. And when they do the whole movement, they do not really, no one's going to say, wow, this puppet walks very well. Or this puppet can move its hands very well. You don't connect the puppet to the movement. And in that same way, the table does not exist for itself. We're not saying that the tree is, wow, this tree exists very well. No, that's because of Hashem. But it doesn't mean that the tree is something positive here. It's not Hashem. It's dependent on Hashem. It's not Him himself.
The start lulav.
Sorry?
The bird lulav.
So, by the way, also with the lulav, I've got to look into it exactly, but Pashtut, also lulav can be thrown out. There's no, we are out of respect to the mitzvah, we don't want to just throw it out, so we save it for chametz and we burn it then. Even burning it, it's not. It's like the nicest way for it to say bye-bye to it. Let's put it that way.
What about the room where the Rebbe was sitting?
So for sure, that's the influence of the tzaddik on a certain place, that the influence stays forever. The influence of, like we see from Yaakov Avinu. Good.
What about Yaakov Avinu and the influence?
He left Haran, he left Beersheba. Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheba, vayelech Harana. Which means that he left Beersheba. And Rashi says, why does it have to say Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheba? Say vayelech leCharan. We know where he was before. We just need to know his new destination. And Rashi says, the mikan she'azivat tzadik mashpia al hamakom. And that's why they felt that he left Beersheba. He left Beersheba because less kedusha was there.
So, Rabbi, you're saying that Hashem contracts in different places in different times?
Right, and in different
Not
ways.
uniform distribution.
Exactly. That's the exact point. And in a mitzvah, there's more of the light of Hashem. And within the mitzvahs themselves, by the way, it depends on the type of the mitzvah. We don't know the value of each mitzvah. We know, for example, that the prohibitive mitzvahs are less than the positive mitzvahs. A positive mitzvah is a positive mitzvah. A positive mitzvah, you bring the light of Hashem down. A prohibitive mitzvah is just to stay away from.
So that applies to people also.
And that applies, so that applies to people also. It's a very good question. The soul, we spoke about the soul. The soul is one. Okay? Let's say the soul is the same. But a person can purify himself. Kedoshim tihiyu. A person can become more and more holy. That was in the generations before our generation, what a lot of the people, when they wanted to get closer to Hashem, they wanted to bring more of the light of Hashem into their personal lives. And how do they do it? By fasting, by doing what's called gilgulei sheleg, somersaults in the snow. And these were all different ways to purify oneself And through that,
They couldn't do it in the show.
in Beersheba, no, but in Russia, and through that, they were able to purify themselves and withdraw more light into their lives. The more you become a vessel, the more light Hashem could share.
Can you do?
Today, fasts is not accepted. It's not.
Can you do mikveh full inside the snow?
That was also one of just the snow. So there's just snow doesn't work, but snow that's connected to a mikveh, so it can be mitzdaref. But a somersault in the snow is not a mikveh. It's got to be mine. It does not ruin a mikveh. It can be even combined as snow that melts. By the way, most of the mikvahot, how do they use the memsah? A lot of it is from snow. It's a very easy way because the water stays.
But it's not connected to the Mayan.
So, but it's Meg Shamim. Meg Shamim is also another, it's good enough. Okay, so that is about Tzimtzum, and that covers the topic of contraction, the different shittas, the different opinions, and most important is what do we see around us? What are we? And the objects around us. And once again, this whole idea of Tzimtzum is to show how Hashem is involved in our lives. Hashem is very much involved. So it's important to know that. Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence. Yeah, and the fact that Melok Kol Haaretz Kvodo v'Atom Achayes Kulam. Hashem gives life to every single object. Okay, we'll stop over here for today, and B'ezrat Hashem next week.